Please come to order. We invite you to stand for the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers for the betterment of our fellow citizens. Lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This time I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the regular order of business so we can do the public hearing on the 2024 proposed budget.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion to dispense with the regular order of business to do the reading of the budget.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson to dispense with the regular order of business to just have the public hearing for the 2024 budget. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Ms. Brickway, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This is the public hearing for the 2024 tax budget of the Village of St. Bernard. This budget will be submitted to the Hamilton County for their review and action. I have provided council with the beginning budget, and here's the breakout of it. The 2024 tax budget reflects the village's general fund, which is the basic operating fund of the village. The estimated revenues for 2024 are as follows. Estimated revenue for the village's earned income tax, $13,500,000. Expected general fund receipts from property taxes, $1,100,000. Total local tax receipts is estimated to be at $14,600,000. Estimated revenue from state and county from revenue sharing and certain taxes and permits, $216,000. Other expected revenue for the Village of St. Bernard comes from charges for services in the amount of $600,000, fines, local licenses and permits, $150,000, and miscellaneous revenue and other sources for $508,000. This brings the total estimated general fund revenue for 2024 to $16,074,000. The estimated expenditures for 2024 are as follows. Within each class of expenditures in the tax budget, estimated costs are itemized for personnel, contractual services, supplies and materials, and equipment or capital outlay. The classifications are as follows. Security of persons and property, which is our police and fire department, $5,920,541. Public health services, $6,400. Leisure time activities, which is our parks and recreation, $335,776. Basic utility services, which is the service department, $1,634,650. Transportation, which is dial-a-ride, $37,000. And general government, $2,614,824.91. We have transfers from the general fund to the other funds, which are the street, swimming pool, debt, master plan, the pensions, the employee health plan, etc. $4,846,384. This brings the total expected general fund expenditures of 2014 to $15,395,575.91. with an estimated surplus for the general fund in 24 of $678,424.09. Are there any questions? That concludes the public hearing and I will submit everything to the county. That will come after if they approve this, then they'll send something with the rates, and we usually vote on those in September, October. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll resume back with the regular council meeting. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberke?
Present.
Mr. Brickwig?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld? Here. Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Present.
Let the record show 5 members are present, 2 members are absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes? I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the last minutes.
Mr. President, make a motion to dispense with the reading of the last minutes.
I'll second that, Mr.
A
President.
motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? Not, the minutes will stand as submitted. We'll move to reports of city officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder about some activities that will be held in the village this weekend. First, on Saturday evening, the Village of St. Bernard and the St. Bernard Police Department will be hosting the Hamilton County Police Association's Brew and Badges event at Vine Street Park Pavilion from 6 to 10 p.m. It's $25 per person to get in, which includes 2 drink tickets, a stainless steel beer cup, and appetizers. Those wishing to enter the cornhole tournament may do so for $20 per team. This fundraiser helps in the purchase of vital equipment for the Hamilton County Police Association's specialized teams such as SWAT, Dive Team, Mobile Field Force, and the Honor Guard. Heather Roush and the Heartstrings will also be playing, so come out and support a great cause for this group. This Sunday will be our next Fresh Market here in the village, and it will again be held in the lower level parking lot, again on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Come out and see the great vendors, listen to some music, and hopefully sit for a bit while you taste some fresh baked goods. The village is currently working with our engineers in Hamilton County on some upcoming street improvement projects. We do qualify for some funding because of the demographics of the neighborhood. So we are currently getting bids for paving and curb repair on Greenlee Avenue. Further information will be forthcoming once the estimates are in. Also exciting news, the albatross on Greenlee should be raised the week of July 10th. Currently are waiting on the asbestos remediation process to be completed, and then demo can happen. Lastly, I've been working with outside counsel on a pay structure for certain elected and appointed members of the administration. I am preparing an ordinance to establish a new pay scale for the auditor, tax administrator, finance assistant, village clerk, mayor's court clerk, mayor's secretary, and safety service director. We do have to get the compensation set for the auditor before the August filing date because the pay scale cannot be changed during the term in which the candidate is serving. However, annual pay increases can be included in the pay ordinance. The appointed positions can be increased at any time, but my suggestion would be that this all happen after the election once the auditor is sworn in, and we can have a new pay scale for the administration that is commensurate with other municipalities. Fluctuating pay scales based on experience, annual percentage increases can be included as well, per legal counsel. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I only have 2 things on the agenda I'd like to be put on the agenda for the Committee of the Whole. As you'll see throughout the meeting, there is a need for some additional appropriations. So I'd just like to be put on the agenda for that. And secondly, after going, first of all, the audit turned out fine. Everything's good. The auditor asked me to ask council if they can take a voice vote on this, just so we have it for the record. But back in 2020, some of the COVID money, how I put it, some of the general fund money got into the COVID money because if you remember, we were going to match some of the fees, and so I was paying it all out of there. They wanted that to be with the general fund and not the COVID. So I went ahead and paid it out of the general, but it's still stuck in the fund. And so we need to zero out that fund, which we will do after we play for the playground. So they just wanted me to ask council to take a vote if they're okay with me taking, it was $137,000 from the COVID funding and move it back into the general because it was not considered actual COVID funding. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of hard. So if you could take maybe a voice vote just so I can tell them that. That way they know I told you about it.
The motion
Mr. President,
to Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion, take a voice vote for Peggy's transfers money.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to have a voice vote to approve the payment from the COVID money to the general fund. With that, all those in favor of that movement,
Mr.
say
President,
aye.
do we have to do a roll call or just? Oh. It's fine.
Oh, clerk, will you call the roll?
Sure, it doesn't
on the
matter.
motion? That's fine.
Oh, whatever.
Do it official.
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
Let the record show 5 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Director of Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. We had a Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee meeting not too long ago, a week and a half ago. And so we had some discussion of a couple of different topics, including dealing with noxious weeds and tall grass, and also the Airbnb type ordinance. So what you may have in front of you was a potential draft ordinance. I think it was ordinance number 21. If you have that in front of you, I do not want to present it to you tonight. I want to withdraw it, and we need probably a more comprehensive. I was going to do it in a series of small ordinances, just because I noticed as I was reading through it, there were typos, there were one or two words that were left out. The whole thing needs to be addressed. I'm going to take it, I want to bring that one back, not present that to you tonight, so I'm going to take that one off the table. What I'd like to do is basically present you with another one, but I want to have another Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee, hope maybe as early as next week or the first part of July, so we can get that to you before the next Committee of the Whole. And I want to have it on the agenda for you at the next Committee of the Whole. And then would also like to get scheduled with the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee, also something to talk about the Airbnb. But I do want to get this one done first, because we do have pressing issues with tall grass. So what you have before you tonight, I want to remove, and we'll come back to you probably still with ordinance number 21, but it will be a much more comprehensive piece of work for you to review. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I received the Star of Ohio statement. So the village, as of the end of May, our funds with the state total $12,732,359.76. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. June the 26th is the beginning of renovations. Orchard Street renovation will begin on Monday, June the 26th. They'll go around to the residents and let them know what's going to happen. We will be starting on the council chamber renovation on Monday, June 26th. There will be a 20-yard dumpster placed in front of City Hall, leaving room for at least 3 parking spots. With school being on recess, it should not be too congested. I have a meeting arranged with the salesperson from Bluegrass Playgrounds. She is back and said that everything will be addressed. Her father had 3 back-to-back strokes and can no longer speak. We will be meeting on July the 6th, sorry. I would like to ask the council for the additional appropriation of $12,000. This is due to an error on my part. To save the money on the parks, I thought we would be capable of spreading the mulch. We can spread it, but we cannot lift it. The company will have to do Franklin and Vine, as it is too big of a job. So as not to hold them up further, I would like to use the general fund and then make the appropriation back to the general fund. Just the mulch is on its way. So I went through the company. This is not written, by the way, Caroline. So I went through the company. I think they stopped answering because they identified the number. But it was held up and then released. And now that it's released, Alpine is clear to go. I think it gets a little more mulch because it's like 3 inches and should have been 6. Hence, you'll see spotted weeds and maybe some mud spots. But that should be addressed also. So everything should be within working order, I would assume, by July. Well, no, right after July. She's coming in to make sure everything is done. And then to my community, your soul is who you really are. It is the foundation of memories, desires, imaginations, feelings, and yes, it has to do with your morals as well. Let's use the term soul searching. This would mean doing a lot of in-depth thinking or contemplating what your true motives may be, or if the correctness of what you are doing is in line with what you emotionally feel is right. In other words, if the path you are taking makes you anxious or guilty feeling, it is probably for the best that you alter your route and try a different avenue. That completes my report.
Thank you. Move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the Meet the Newbie night last week, the police and firemen stressed to please make sure your house number is visible from the street. They get calls, there are new guys down there, aren't from St. Bernard, they don't know people's names and houses, so they're looking for house numbers. So please have your house number visible. Concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickway.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Housefeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the Service Department report for May 2023. There were 38 trucks placed at residence, 30 dumpsters placed at residence, 236 special pickups at residence, 216.8 tons of garbage taken to the landfill. As far as the recycling report, there was 25.92 tons of recycling material, 4,520 pounds of scrap metal, 4 tires, 10 30-yard roll-off dumpsters, 300 yards, 2 30-yard yard waste roll-offs, 60 yards. And then I also have the report of waste collection fees for the month of April 2023, which was $23,775.38 was remitted to the village. And that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public Improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The CIC will have a meeting this Tuesday, 6 o'clock in council chambers. One thing I just wanted to ask the mayor, when they do the engineering study, is there any way they could look at, traffic flow down Greenlee and slowing it down, or is that something different?
Mr. President,
Maybe.
so yes, we did discuss traffic calming with the engineers, so yes, that is discussed. So the intent, potentially, whether there would be speed cushions or something similar, but we also are applying for a mini grant for a comprehensive traffic study as well, but yes, they will look at that in the bidding process and in getting the estimates for us, but also I'm going to make for a third time in a couple weeks actually point out something that Mr. Taberky actually had stated tonight, that one thing that I do need to bring up with the engineer that wasn't caught was that basically for Greenlee, from Delmar to Mitchell, the sanitary and storm sewer has not been separated in that area, so that may change some of our comprehensive plans for the street. But again, as I had stated, that the demographics actually support the funding that we would receive, so we will look at that. But yes, we've talked about traffic calming in other areas. They're also looking at other streets to see if they qualify. There are streets that we actually obviously can pay for, out of our funds. But yes, the hope would be that they would actually be able to put cushions in or something similar all at the same time while they're doing the work. So yes.
All right, thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Mr. President, I don't have a report today. I did want to go back, though, if I can, and I had a question for Valerie that I was looking for the answer and didn't find. And I think it's because I had to leave the laws, contracts, and claims a little bit early. Are we putting teeth in that ordinance so that we can demand that the grass is cut to completion and not an attempt, or however we decided we interpreted it? Okay. I just want to, I didn't see it yet, so I just want to make sure we're going that direction. That concludes my report.
Thank you. No communications, I forgot to ask. The Committee of the Whole was submitted.
Yep, Committee of the Whole minutes were submitted on 6/21, and there's no communications this evening.
Thank you. All right, Clerk, would you please give the first reading of ordinance number 19, 2023?
Ordinance number 19, 2023, ordinance amending Title 9, Chapter 181 of the St. Bernard Codified Ordinances, the St. Bernard Municipal Income Tax Code, and declaring an emergency.
Members of Council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance 19, 2023. Since there is a lack of votes to go emergency, can I have a motion to go regular course?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
make a motion, ordinance 19, take its regular course.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson. To ordinance 19, 2023 go its regular course. Are there any remarks? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 19? Not, clerk, will you call the roll to go regular course?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickweg?
Aye.
Ms. Housefeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance 19, 2023 will go its regular course. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 2023?
Ordinance number 20, 2023, fixing the compensation of the law director of the Village of St. Bernard and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
make a motion ordinance 2023 take its regular course.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Ms. Hausfeld, that ordinance 2023 go its regular course. Are there any remarks? Anyone in the audience wishing to address on ordinance 20? Clerk, will you please call the roll on the motion?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays. Motion to go regular course carries. And those will be carried over. Does anyone in council have anything under old business? Under old business, I would entertain a motion to approve the updated rules of council. We talked about the 3 changes last week at Committee of the Whole, so if we could make a motion to approve those new ones.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to approve the updated council rules.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson to approve the updated council rules. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. With the, before we go to new business, with the lack of votes, what is council's pleasure on having a special council meeting for these 2 ordinances before Committee of the Whole? Or I believe we're looking at making the next council meeting on Thursday, July 20th because of other commitments and 2 members not being here that night. So thoughts?
Mr. President,
Mayor?
I actually, during new business, was going to request that on July 14th, that we actually have a special council meeting to, just in case
The 13th,
I'm sorry, wait, I was looking at the wrong calendar.
I think.
You're right.
13th.
So, yes, you're correct, 13th. So, in case there needs to be 3 readings for the proposed the ordinance that will be forthcoming for compensation for the elected and appointed administrative officials. So that would, again, we could do that in the same evening. Because we may need 3, well, we may need 3 readings. So again, this would be the first if it doesn't go emergency. And then we can schedule another special after the last July meeting,
Okay.
if need be.
So do we want to do the special meeting at 8 o'clock after that's all presented at Committee of the Whole? Or do we want to do it, we don't want to do it prior to if you're going to introduce?
It would still have to be put on, there would still have to be the motion, obviously, to put it on the agenda for the special meeting. So you'll be getting that in advance. But yes, I would say we still have to set a time. So whether we say 8 o'clock or whether we go right into that first, I mean, it's entirely up to you, whatever you think is an appropriate time, but yes.
Good question. What's council's thought? Discuss it at Committee of the Whole and then have the special meeting afterwards?
Yeah, that's fine.
We'll just call the special council meeting 7:45. I'll get a hold of, well, I guess Heidi will put that, I'll call Heidi and let her know. 7:45, okay. All right.
What's the date on that?
That's Thursday, July 13th.
Okay.
Yep. Does anyone on council have anything under new business?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
a couple things. I think Jeff Probst is doing a good job power washing the municipal building. Are we going to do safety center also? It's looking pretty shabby down there.
Mr. President,
Mr. Paul?
we can, as soon as he finishes up here.
And to follow up on that, is there any plans to mulch, weed the beds down the safety center? The weeds are taking over everywhere. It looks sad.
Where is this?
The safety center, right there by the St. Bernard sign. There's
Yes,
plant material there. The weeds are
Yeah,
overgrown.
The safety center's in a contract, and I believe that they're having a bit of a go with what was supposed to be done, and I don't believe they have been paid yet. Yeah, so that's still ongoing.
Anyone else under new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Hausfeld?
are we still having the council meeting on that following 20th?
Yes.
We are. Okay, thank you. One more question. Valerie, is there any way with that new grass ordinance that you're working on, can we also, and I always thought we had something on the books as far as the weeds, like on the sidewalks in front of people's homes and right there on the curbs in the street? Because the village is looking horrible. And I know I addressed this with Tommy a couple weeks ago, and I know the service department is doing what they can, but if we could do it to where the citizens are actually responsible in front of their homes, I think it would help a lot if there's something we could do. I kind of wanted to get other people's opinions on that because I understand that the service department works on public areas and stuff like that, but I think the homeowner should be responsible for weeds in front of their homes and sidewalks and stuff. I might be wrong on that, but.
Mr. President,
Mr. Paul?
the citizens are responsible for the front of their home. That includes redoing sidewalks. The only reason the village would step in to do a sidewalk is if it was normal wear and tear. But if it's broken by a tree or whatever, that is on the resident. Again, when you look, we go out, Robert and I, frequently for this high stuff, and now people are actually putting flowers or wildflowers in between the sidewalk and the curb. And the only way that would be against our ordinance is if it blocks the sidewalk. So if it grows up to be so high, that's not against our ordinance. And when they had that laws and claims, hopefully they brought up also gardens in the front yard, because we don't have that either, and that's allowable. So it'd be interesting.
Valerie, can you
Yes.
also include some of that? I mean,
Well, that's one of the things we certainly can address at the laws, because I do want to get another Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee meeting in before the next committee as a whole. But yes, as Mr. excuse me, Paul just said, those kind of issues really are addressed in the present ordinance. We may want to strengthen it. I'm not sure I understand, was there an objection to front yard gardens?
Mr. President? No, there's not an objection, but if, like, Robert and I actually had a person call and wanted to put corn in his front yard. So basically, he probably had the right to do it, but Robert said that would look awful and actually talked him out of it in Robert's own way. So, but he could have very well have done it. And as you see, people are starting to plant more in their front yards and then along the sidewalk there. I see it everywhere. And then people call also to put pavers in. They're allowed to do that. And there's a word for the concrete. I don't know what it is. Somebody may know, where it actually goes into the lawn and sinks in, and it's like concrete. That's allowable. And I didn't know that either, but that is allowed in between the curb and the sidewalk. So,
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Fulton?
on that ordinance, Valerie, who's responsible for enforcing that? Is that, we have somebody driving around enforcing this? Is this based on people calling, police? Who would be responsible for enforcing?
Well, as it's now written, basically, the sanitarian and the person in Mr. Paul's position is responsible for enforcement and investigation. And that's section 905.06. So, yeah, I mean, we do actually have the ability to be more proactive if we have the capacity to do that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
Valerie, can you make sure all council's advised of the next law answer? Because I didn't know anything about the meeting last week. I was never notified on that. Thank you.
Yeah, it was posted on the board outside, and I think there may have been a call command about it, but I'll make sure I'll confer with the members of the committee, and we'll get a date, and we'll make sure everybody knows, and we'll get it posted the way we're supposed to do.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickway?
I might make a lot of enemies here, but yeah, I'm opposed. I don't like the front yard gardens, and I don't like the wildflowers in the front yard. And I've had a lot of complaints on them from different people. The problem is when you have the wildflowers, you have a lot of weeds in between, and I don't see how Robert Evans can figure that one out. So I know there's some out there now, so if council was in favor of not having front yard gardens or a whole front yard of wildflowers in the ordinance, we would probably have to grandfather that to start next year. But when you ride around town and you see the people that they call it their natural habitat, my opinion, it's, I mean, they're like this tall. We don't let our grass grow that big, but some of these people have these plants that are, 3 feet tall. And I don't think it looks nice in our area. And I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with me, but I know I've had a lot of people complain about it. So I just thought I'd throw that out for council's opinion on that.
Mr. President, I have one more thing to add.
You fine?
I don't know if any of you read in the news, but there actually is a group going around trying to make a no grass cut, leave your grass grow. And it's more than likely because of pollution and stuff and such. So with that going to be happening, I think we need a lot of teeth in our ordinance. So.
All right. Anyone else under new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickley.
can I ask any council member to give an opinion on the front yard garden since I'm the only one that said it?
Mr. President, I think I'm on the
Mr.
laws,
Schulberg.
contracts, and claims. I think we should definitely look at it. I don't know yet whether I'm in favor of saying none or limiting it somehow, but I think we should definitely talk about it because I agree. Some of them don't look great. Some of them look okay, I think, but some of them don't look great. So I will be sure to bring it up, and you guys will probably be there, I would guess.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
I mean, I understand that bringing up the concerns at a council meeting, but, you know, again, if there's a definite concern, I would encourage you to come to the meeting where we can actually discuss it and try to have a resolution, because, again, we have council members and other individuals that weren't there bringing things up. I know that they may not have been made aware properly, or if they may not have heard about the meeting, but I would encourage them to come to the next one so that we can actually get involved, so that we're not asking these questions right now.
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickley.
I asked my councilman to bring it up, but I guess he forgot.
Moving right
Mr.
along.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Anything else under new business?
Mr. President, while we're talking about it, I definitely like curb appeal, and the cleaner St. Bernard looks, the better it is for our community to draw new residents to the community. And I believe this newfangled thing Tommy might just explain there is people are just getting lazy. They don't want to do the work. And if they don't want to do the work, pay somebody. That's all I got on that.
All right. Moving along then, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? So please state your name and address for the record.
Matthew Duran, 36 Baker. I just want to I'm going to start by thanking Don Berkey for that Block Watch meeting. It was nice meeting some of the new people. Now to go to the negative side of what I want to say. I don't think council should be able to approve themselves raises. I feel like it should have been something that the residents vote on. I know there's not laws on that or anything like that, but I know a lot of residents disagree, and I'm sure you guys also didn't. When we went from 4 meetings down to 2, you probably didn't cut your pay. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council?
About try forth was park this hill try forth.
Tom, are you asking about the July 4th
Yes.
celebration? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. President, so the celebration is actually not at Ross Park, so it would be at Vine Street, beginning in the 5 o'clock in the afternoon, or I guess we can get in at 4, but basically there's going to be a cornhole tournament there in the pavilion. We're going to have a band. There'll be bounce houses available, and then at 9:30 there'll be a laser light show, but it wouldn't be fireworks, but a laser light show that's all going to be incorporated with music as well, but it'll be at Vine Street Park.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Bob Hausfeld, 4422 Tower Avenue. I have a couple questions about the parks. I haven't been down here, so I'm not sure if you've said it in the past, but how many parks have been remodeled?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
There's 7 of them, and the village did 3 of the small ones.
When you say the village did 3, you guys put the equipment in and all that?
Oh, no, Mr. President?
Oh.
Tennis Lane didn't need, they needed a few extra bars. Everything else was in good shape. Ludlow was in good shape, and Burtis was small enough where the company came in and put it in, and we spread the mulch for that.
Okay, so you said 7 total, so that's 4 other ones that that you had contracted out?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
Yes, we actually bought all the stuff from this company, and with 7, there may be 8. I would have to get the paperwork. However, that would be Vine, Franklin, Greenlee, Lower Ross. That's 4. Yep, and then the other 3 we did, so it's 7. Oh, and Alpine, so it's 8.
I'm really curious to why. First off, my first part of it would be, why would you guys start remodeling the parks May 1st when kids are still in school till May 31st or June 1st, whatever? Franklin Park was the only park that the kids at the elementary had to play in. Vine Street, I know St. Clement's used, and I think St. Bernard did too for older kids. But I guess what I don't really understand, well, that was one part I really don't understand. A second part is, why would you start the parks if you didn't have all the equipment here? You know, Franklin Park and Vine Street Park, I know for sure, have been sitting there for probably going on a month now without any activity, any working activity, and there's still no mulch down. And the reason it really bothers me is last night, my 3-year-old grandson was over there playing on the park with his sister, who's 13, just like a lot of kids have been doing. The park's been used pretty much since it's been sitting there. And my 3-year-old comes off of the spinny thing, lands on a rock that's sitting in the ground, embedded in the ground, and he broke his leg. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that you would start a project without having all the equipment there and not finishing the project all at once. Secondly, was each park a different contract, or was it all under one contract?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
It's all under one contract with one company, and it was started May the 1st due to the fact that it would have been ready for summer. But remember the shortage of paint, the shortage of rubber, the shortage of vinyl. It all got held up. And when it got held up, the stuff came in, they put it in, we put caution tape. I announced it, please don't use the park until there's mulch down. The caution tape gets torn down. There's no way we can keep it up. If we tried a yellow fence, orange fence, wind fence, snow fence, they would have tore that down just to get in there. It was held up. It was like no one's fault. It was COVID period. Everything went haywire because this was supposed to be done last May.
Mr. President, can I help with some of that?
Ms. Berkeley.
On a couple things, Bob, to add to it, and I've already said this before, but I'll repeat it again. The items were ordered a long time ago. People were complaining left and right that the parts weren't being done. So it's one of those things you can't win or lose with that one. Secondly, we had to get them completed too because I got to file my paperwork because it was COVID money. So we had to get them started. On the other part, I don't know about you, Bob, but I've bought furniture before and I go to put it together and their parts aren't there. It was very similar to that. You don't know what you're missing until it's not there. For a prime example, the only one I really know about is the park in my neighborhood. Some of the parts of the slide were missing, so we had to wait to order it to get the new parts in. But I will say that park was not ready in my neighborhood, and I absolutely forbid my grandkids to go down there and play in it. I mean, if it's not ready, to me, I mean, I know you said it was okay to go ahead and let kids play on it.
No, I didn't say it was okay. I said I'm saying it's ridiculous that they're
No,
sitting
you
there
put
for a
on
month.
Facebook that you just go ahead and use them.
I said that other kids have been using them, so I guess you can go ahead and use them if you want to.
No,
Something
and
to
see,
that
yeah,
effect.
and I was gonna comment then and I didn't, but I don't think we should have encouraged that.
Well-
Basically, like, I knew the one down the street was not ready, and I
They're-
feel
they're
for
u-
your grandson, I really do.
They're used every day. They're
But
being
they
used
shouldn't
every
be.
day right now.
They shouldn't
And
be.
as for tape getting torn down, it wouldn't take nothing to go up there. And I know you can't do it every single minute of the day, but you can drive by there and make sure the tape's up if you don't want people playing in the playgrounds. So I guess here's my question. You kind of answered it, Tom. You said there's one contract for all of them. I was told that some parks were in the contract that the company would throw the mulch down, and other parks were in the contract that said the city would take care of the mulch. Is that true or is that false?
Mr. President.
Mr. Paul.
That is true. And the company that runs it has different crews to put it in. And the one crew was fired in the middle of our job. I cannot do anything about that. I did figure that our guys could spread the mulch. However, as I announced tonight, it was too heavy. It is too heavy. We've done 3. We can't do the larger parks. There's like 80 bags of mulch that still need to be spread.
Okay, so we're not spreading it because it's too heavy. It's too heavy, I guess, for the payloader to take it up there?
No, it'll be delivered there. We can't lift the containers that it comes in. We get it maybe 3 inches off the ground. That's it.
Okay. I was just told that there was a mistake on the contract where the city was under the impression that the company was doing the mulch and it wasn't put into all the contracts. So maybe the person telling me this, who is a city worker, is telling me the wrong thing, so.
Mr. President,
Mr.
he is
Paul.
telling you the truth. I knew that we could do Ludlow. I knew that we could do tennis. Those are little tiny areas. So I didn't include them into the contract to save all that money. Then Burtis was also in our contract, but that mulch got held up, so we ended up doing that one. The larger ones, which I figured we were doing okay, Eddie and I spoke and said, you know what, we can save more money by doing this. We found out that we can't do it. That's why it's an error on my part.
Well, one thing I'll mention at the Ludlow, or at the Baker Park is, I don't know if any of you guys looked at it, but that's mulched. That little area between the brick where it's a walkway comes right out to the sidewalk, and there's nothing holding the mulch back, so it looks terrible, let alone it's going to get rid of half the mulch into the street. So that's something to look at. Peggy, you brought up a point. It was COVID money. When was the deadline that it had to be paid by?
We have an extension right now, but as soon as we could get the equipment in, I have to file the paperwork.
So the extension's for a certain amount of time, or just until
Yeah.
the?
Yeah, they said as soon as we could get it put in, that I have to do it because I got to file the forms on the internet for it. But I told them that we didn't have it in, so I said as soon as it comes in, let's get it in so I can, so we can pay for it.
Okay. And then also, Tom, you brought up a point tonight about sidewalks, and it confused me a little bit. Since I've been a little kid, the city has replaced sidewalks and taken care of the bad sections around town. I noticed that sidewalks, curbs, and streets are not being taken care of. They haven't been taken care of for a while now. There's chunks missing everywhere. Are you saying the homeowner, and honestly, I know in Norwood that the homeowners are responsible for the sidewalks. Are you saying the homeowners are responsible for the sidewalks now, or?
Mr. President,
Mr.
the
Paul.
homeowners have always been responsible for the sidewalks, but the city had a lot of workers and a lot of funds, and they did it so people got used to that, same as free garbage bags. So yes, but by law, they are responsible for their sidewalks, and if they damage it, they have to fix it. The only way the city would step in is if it deteriorated naturally.
Well, and I understand that. I know that technically the homeowners are responsible for sidewalks, but like I said, the city of St. Bernard, Village of St. Bernard has been taking care of them for 50 years now that I know of. So if we're going to change that policy, are we going to notify homeowners and let them know, or are we just going to send them something saying that your sidewalk's a mess, you got this amount of time to fix it?
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
I have yet to write anybody up for sidewalks, but when I do get calls, I tell them that they're responsible. They agree and have it fixed. So it's, to go around and tell the people to fix it up, that we've trimmed up the sidewalks for the walking trails. But I don't know that there's bad enough sidewalks anywhere that needs repair besides that are natural. So it would be the homeowner. And they get a normal, regular letter stating that.
So, okay. Well, I just advise, and I know I see Bobby, I see you walking around town all the time, but you're the only one. I'd advise a lot of city officials to start walking around this town because there's a lot of sidewalks that need to be replaced and fixed. I know you guys grinded some down to try to fix some parts of them, but there's a lot of holes, cracks, everything in sidewalks around town that you guys need to look at. My last question is, I was told by a city official that we're over 50% rental property in this town. I'm wondering if you guys have, keep track of how much rental we have, who's rental, who's not. Is that something that's kept tracked in the tax office? I know it was, I thought it was years ago, so, and if so, is that public record?
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
I know that landlords have to report that to the tax office, so I would imagine they have that. I would say as far as public record, the census publishes that every, I think, 4 years, or 6 years. They do a census where they go around and they'll release that data of, just the demographic makes up of the village. So I could pull that information, but I believe it's out on the U.S. Census Bureau's website.
You're saying like what percentage is rental?
Yeah, it'll break down all your demographics and, rentals versus owners, single families, and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council? Mr. Durbin?
Durbin, 36 Baker. Since he spoke, I just want to add a few more things and ask some questions. Since we remodeled the parks and redid Baker, are they redoing the brick wall? Because it looks like crap.
Mr. President,
Mayor?
I do agree with that. Leaving it open to the extent that it was to get equipment in was advisable, but I do believe that, yes, that does need to be repaired, if not replaced. So as it got opened up more around the perimeter, yes, it does need to be repaired or removed. We also need to I believe, place some type of post actually in the center also so vehicles can't drive in as well. But yes, the brick does need to be repaired. So I 100% agree. So I do believe that we should actually contract with someone to, unless we don't have someone in the service department that can lay block. But yes, it does need to be fixed.
Is the pavement there, like where the basketball court and the old swings used to be, going to get fixed up too? Because I know there's a sinkhole forming in there.
Mr. President, yes. So I would like that explored as well because yes, it is much more visible as well. And it'd be nice to get the whole thing, whether it be repaved as a whole or whether it can be patched, but yes.
And since we're on the topic of sidewalks, can I remove mine since I'm responsible for it and put some flowers? Because I don't want to take care of my sidewalk.
Anyone else wish to address council? All right, if not, what is council's pleasure on the absent members?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberkey?
make a motion to excuse the absent members.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Taberkey, seconded by Mr. Bob Culbertson to excuse the absent members. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. All right, so the next committee of the whole is Thursday, July 13th, 7 p.m., with a special council meeting that same night at 7:45 p.m. And then for future reference, the July council meeting will be on Thursday, July 20th at 7 p.m. instead of Thursday, July 27th. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberkey.
make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Taberkey, second by Mr. Bob Culbertson to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. We are adjourned.